Chapter 181. Inheriting Shadowblade. 4. Slash, slash, slash. For exactly 5 hours, Jean swung his sword 10,000 times. And with the swings being consistent in quality and speed, Garmund couldn't keep his jaw from dropping. Phew, I finished. Jean flicked his sweaty bangs. Although Tantel said that he would return to his quarters, he remained to watch Jean with his task. After around 3,000 swings, other beastmen came to watch. At 5,000, the color in Garmund's face drained. And at 7,000, he was sweating. At the 10,000 mark, Garmund realized that he had been underestimating Jin's prowess. The boy genuinely astonished Garmund. I would have never known. This situation. I didn't think it'd happen. What the hell? Hoo-hooah. Disregarding Garmund's conflicting emotions, the other beastmen shouted and screamed. The normal warriors had different perspectives than the fighting legends. They had been waiting for thousands of years for someone to contest Timar's absolute dominance. They wanted to verify that their frozen time was worth it. Garmund, why are you speechless? A smile grew on Jin's face, and Garmund cleared his throat. His brethren enjoyed the sight, so he had felt a little guilty for being the only person who wanted Jean to fail. Well done. I didn't think you would execute it so perfectly. No, I didn't want to hear some patronizing compliments. Humph, what do you want me to say? Then, please confirm that I am ready to receive your teachings. With your own mouth. Jean wasn't provoking Garmund without any deep thought. In fact, he relied on all of the spectators around the training grounds. He knew that Garmund was becoming conscious of the others. Amongst the legends, Garmund had the strongest ties to his people. And if he didn't accept Jean, then he would be disappointing his brethren. TCH, all right? I accept you, Jean Runcandle. You are now ready to learn the secret technique known as Shadowblade from yours truly, the 8th fighting legend. Whoa, so cool. Garmund, Garmund, Garmund. The spectators chanted simultaneously, and Garmund began to blush. His heart began to shine a little brighter, moved by his emotions. All right, everyone go on your way. The real training is about to begin. The audience continued to cheer as they left. With gratitude, Jean also waved his hand in the air. Again, the two stood together in the training grounds. How old are you, apprentice? 16. After December, I'll be 17. Garmund's eyes widened. Even within the tribe, not many others could achieve Jin's level at that age. Jean had already stepped into the domain of Mind's blade. This is interesting. Garmund swiftly drew his sword. Is it a spar? Oh ho, you overestimate yourself. A spar is only when you are even 1/10 of my power. Jean clearly could not conceive how strong these beastmen were. How big is our skill gap? You're not even close to moving my sword. Right as Garmund finished his sentence, Jean stabbed him in the throat with shadow vacuum. Clang. Garmund easily deflected the sword, furious. Fire sparked in his eyes. What's this? You said that I wouldn't even be able to move your sword, so I decided to try something. Turns out that I was wrong. You moved your sword. Garmund's face crumpled. Embarrassment after embarrassment befell him. This was not his day. I was going to make him try to move my sword when he was speechless. Garmund had been talking about strength. No such warrior existed such that no movement of the sword was necessary to block Jin's attack. That's not what I meant. I meant that, no matter how many times you strike my sword, you won't be able to move it. Oh, that's what you meant? I knew something was weird. I failed to read between the lines. Of course, Jean knew what Garmund meant this entire time. He just wanted to embarrass him. There was nothing bad about magnifying his strength through these little conversations. More than anything, this guy is fun to annoy. Jean didn't hate people like Garmund. All right, then try again. Don't go for me, but my sword. Understood. Jean stepped forward and swung the cursed sword. Clang. Whoa! Jean could only be impressed. He didn't exert any aura, but he did use a lot of strength. However, Garmund's sword didn't budge. And of course, Garmund's stance didn't falter either. On the other hand, Jean lost his balance temporarily from the impact. Garmund let out a snort, seeming to know that this would happen. Just as I said. You can't make my sword move. I'll try again. As much as you want. Jean backed off and breathed slowly. He closed his eyes, focusing his energy and concentrating. The blue aura from his palms wrapped around Shadow Vacuum. Hop! He swung with all his might. It was a strike that he would never use in a real fight. What kind of enemy would let him close his eyes? Clang! Blade to blade. A loud sound echoed throughout the grounds at the collision. However, Garmund's sword didn't even vibrate, and Jean flew opposite him. From his mouth, a stream of blood leaked. Ugh! Garmund originally planned to laugh. He had already imagined the expected result, hoping to see a pathetic sight. However, my sword almost broke. For the first time in 1,000 years, Garmund felt like his palms were ripping apart. The heat scorched his hands, and his arms throbbed in pain. He wanted to smile. It was equivalent to an 8-star in human terms. Jean was still a 7-star, but as a run candle who just crossed the godforsaken desert, he had already grown a lot. However, that's not enough for me to treat you well. It had only been a day since he came to La Ferosa. If Garmund gave him the respect he wanted, the bastardly human would want more. As such, he had to be tough and strict. Complete a swing. That is able to move my sword. Will you tell me the process? Didn't the 3 mirages already teach you that? The key is to believe. Believe. The most important aspect of Shadowblade was belief. Subliming the belief into spiritual energy was the core of the technique. It was the equivalent of using Mind's Blade, except Shadowblade had the expanding property. The secret technique didn't exist only to cut through things efficiently. All right, I'll give you a week. Within that week, you have as many attempts to strike my sword. Use everything you've got. Rip your hands, break your teeth. You must understand the core of Shadowblade. Jin's eyes narrowed. A week. He obviously set a tight time limit in his terms. If I succeed, then I'll definitely earn his respect. Hopefully, he won't go back on his words. On the other hand, Garmund was contemplating. Is 1 week too harsh? I know this kid is something special, but I have to make it a challenge. Stand after failure, second apprentice. Then I and the others will accept you. Asterisk 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 translator. J. Proofreader. Yukid Okada asterisk asterisk asterisk. Is that it? Apprentice? If your belief wavers, so will your sword. Do you not understand? And your Soderet's contractor despite being like that? Humph. I can see it in your eyes. You are not ready. Timar did it in 2 days. If the others knew, they would have never appreciated you. Garmund prepared many comments. He planned to receive Jin's blows thousands of times while standing still to absolutely devastate him. However, on the 3rd day, after 27,576 swings, Garmund's sword broke. He blankly stared at the result of 4 days of swinging. Amongst his despicable comments, the only one that stimulated Jean was, Timar did it in 2 days. And for all of the strikes, Jean looked like he was enjoying it. In fact, Garmund was the only one who looked in pain. I took 1 more day than Timar. Jean picked up a remnant of Garmund's blade as he spoke. From start to finish, he never showed a face of enjoyment. He was dissatisfied that his results came close to his ancestors. Shit. If only I focused a little more, I would have done better. Jean sighed. Garmund just stared in astonishment. He expected at least a month's work to attain such a feat, yet Jean completed it in only 3 days. Of course, he was still slower than Timar. However, considering the cursed sword and his age, a 1-day difference is insane. In fact, his success is even more impressive. Jean sought this place as a complete warrior. There might not be many things that the tribe could teach him. Garmund thought through Jin's training. Thump, thump. He patted Jean on the back and chuckled. Second apprentice, Jean Runcandle. I'll be honest. You didn't seem like the freak of nature that you are, but you impressed me until the end. Are you accepting me? For me, yeah. The other brothers will open their hearts to you. They will feel the purity and strength of your soul. To Garmin's drastic personality change, Jean smiled. Then Garmin spoke. I have one small request. A request. May I be the first to experience your achievement? The first to experience. My what? Answer me. His eyes sparkled. Jean couldn't deny him at all. I don't know what you would like, but I'll comply. Garmin took the blade shard from Jin's hand and tossed it into his mouth. He ground his teeth before swallowing. Satisfied, he pounded his chest. A very good taste. Starting tomorrow, the fifth legend will come out here as well. Chapter 182. Inheriting Shadowblade 5. The fifth fighting legend was Boraz. He was about half the size of Garmin and a little more chattery. At first glance, he had an expression of great astonishment. Garmin had probably relayed some information beforehand. Jean would never know that Garmin blabbered about Jin's feet until his mouth became dry. These beastmen are just very big dogs. The illustrious legend tribe in La Ferosa felt like the opposite of their notoriety throughout history. Compared to a serious and battle-ready facade, they all just had adorably stupid personalities. Snatch! Ha! As soon as Jean arrived, Boraz grabbed his chin. I couldn't react? Shit! Why's he so fast? Although it was because he carelessly had his guard lowered, it was still very shocking. As Jean failed to contain his surprise, Garmin giggled, having already expected Jean to fail to react. Boraz then examined Jin's mouth. Jean didn't try to escape his grasp. He already knew how strong these beastmen were from the time Bellas grabbed him. Hey, second apprentice. Why re you missing a molar? It broke. Ho? How so? If you would please let me go. Boraz instantly let go and Jean slowly explained why. His molar broke. That he had gritted his teeth too hard when he tried to approach Timar. Damn! That's sick. Your teeth are stronger than most monsters. You bit down on your own teeth enough to break them? You're definitely some specimen. Specimen? Jean glared at him, and Garmin nonchalantly whistled while looking in another direction. Boraz chuckled and continued. No, you mustn't do that. Anyway, teeth are important. I guess you need a new one. Before Jean could even answer, crack. Boraz inserted his own hand into his mouth and plucked a tooth out. A large, sharp, round tooth. What the foo? Blood flooded his mouth. However, Boraz was too busy showing off the tooth to care. Hey, look! These are the teeth that we boast about. Rocks, steel, even diamond, we can chew it all. Oh, of course, you need complementary bite force to support it. I understand that illustrious legend tribesmen have strong teeth. I watched Garmin eat sword scraps like chips. Anyway, why did you? Ha ha ha. Now I will carve this in the shape of your teeth and ram it into your gum. Have some fun with Garmin. I'll be right back. Boraz gave a thumbs up and disappeared. He vanished so quickly that Jean didn't even see an afterimage. How should I interpret this? Surprisingly, Garmin didn't think this situation was weird at all. Is putting that tooth in my gum even possible? Nothing is impossible. So you've done this before? No? First time. Alright. Enough talk. Let's train. Shadowblade first technique, Soul Slash. I'll show you. Shing. Garmin drew a new sword and took his stance. Jean followed, not wanting to talk about teeth anymore. Soul Slash is the beginning and end of the art of Shadowblade. He had heard the same thing when learning spiritual energy release from Murakan. The beginning and end. Well, all fighting techniques were like that. The basic swing in swordsmanship, the basic stab in spear-wielding, the basic punch in martial arts. Mastering the most advanced skills in any discipline was the basics with more steps. Don't be surprised, apprentice. Whoosh! Black smoke surrounded Garmin's sword. Concentrated spiritual energy. Garmin swung the sword here and there while constantly glancing at Jean. I'm not a contractor, but I'm using spiritual energy. Why aren't you surprised? Jean basically read his mind. I assumed Solderet distributed his abilities. If you couldn't wield spiritual energy, then how would you be able to use Shadowblade in the first place? Ah, well, I guess so. Jean still felt a little weird. He never thought of someone other than him using spiritual energy. Just show me. Garmund licked his lips. Well, all right. The beastman's eyes narrowed, and Jean could feel the concentration and power from a distance. Instinctively, he took about 20 strides backwards. The sword constantly burned with black fire. His blade fell like lightning. The black emission swallowed the empty space. Not even the swoosh of the sword could be heard. Neither did the screech of metal blade to stone floor echo. For those that couldn't wield spiritual energy had a fate of darkness sealed for them. Crack. After the move ended, the first sound was heard. A shockwave exploded from Garmund, and stone debris flew everywhere. A blade mark that spanned about 50 steps long. Garmund could only shake his head after completing the demonstration with unsatisfactory results. How was that? Very quick, big, quiet, and strong. Jean answered calmly. However, deep inside, he thought of Luna's mind's blade, Blood Moon. It looks like a mini-blood moon. However, it looks like it has a lesser physical toll. If I can use this successively, those who were 7-star and below wouldn't stand a chance. What I showed you was only 50% of its full power, which is why Timar's mark is twice as big. But didn't you say Soul Slash was the beginning and end of Shadow Blade? I did. Does that mean that, if I complete Soul Slash, the power is limited to a blade mark that's only 100 steps long? Garmund chuckled. That's only if you complete Soul Slash. However, once you begin to master Shadow Blade, Soul Slash wouldn't become much of a technique but an ability. An ability? Why do you think the first technique is Soul Slash? You can take the life of anyone who has less will than you. Even if their absolute power is greater than yours, they can't evade the death of their soul. Jean couldn't understand a single word Garmund was spouting. It wasn't Jin's problem at the moment, since it wasn't an area that Timar or half the fighting legends couldn't achieve. You have to learn how to combine your sword and spiritual energy, and you do that by... There was one question I couldn't answer when you asked. Other than his comments on the swing, Jean forgot to say one more thing. I've seen it. If it weren't for Shadow Vacuum, I can mimic your action. Elaborate. Garmund no longer got surprised by Jean. He felt that there was nothing wrong with this kid doing amazing things. Jean summarized his experiences. Cutting through Myron's Hell's Gate and Goltep's hammer. The Beastman applauded. Yes, it's exactly that feeling. Spot on. This vermin already felt Shadow Blade's first technique while battling. Channeling your will by chanting. Garmund clapped his hands again. All right, I understand now. I'll show you again. There was no specific reason for the second demonstration. In fact, Garmund learned more from his conversation with Jean. This time, he chanted some words as he focused. I will cut through that. I can cut through. He repeatedly chanted those words, just as Jean did. The black sword's crescent swallowed the surroundings as it traveled, and Garmund successfully left a larger mark. Whoa, this is it. Wait, aren't you supposed to teach me? Isn't this the opposite? Jean burst into laughter, and Garmund made an awkward smile. I'm actually more familiar with Glory Blade than Shadow Blade. The latter is much more inefficient for me. He looked satisfied with his own excuse. He used his vocabulary very well. Are you speaking out of your ass? Aren't you the teacher? We're both learning, so shut up and overcome Shadow Vacuum. If you just do that, you'll quickly complete the first technique. Then the fourth fighting legend will be here soon. I feel like I'm being scammed. It's just a feeling. Then show me Glory Blade. Jean got more interested in Glory Blade than Shadow Blade. No, why not? You're not a brethren. I'll tell the others that you learned about Shadow Blade from me. You dare threaten me? The eighth legend? Garmund. Garmund screamed and stomped once on the floor. Crack, crack, crack. A crevice ripped across the floor instantaneously as the air got dense. The pressure is definitely thicker than when he used Shadow Blade. However, it was all a bluff. It was akin to children throwing a tantrum when they got busted. Jean glared back, and Garmund shrugged, as if he lost. Fine. Just once. Good. Jin didn't want to leave with only Shadow Blade under his belt. After your training with the fourth legend, you will train with normal warriors every day. Before that, make sure to take a good look at Glory Blade from Garmand. Couldn't you just show me, Tantel? If a fighting legend shows you and Goddess Van finds out, the cleanup is much easier. Remembering his conversation the previous night, Jin really wanted to sink his eyes into it. He didn't think the opportune moment would come so quickly, though. Now, I will show you the most basic move. Thud 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 thud. From the other side of the training ground, someone was sprinting from far away, leaving a massive dust cloud behind them. It was Boras, returning after working on the tooth. Unfortunately, I can't show you, haha. I will take a look. You and I will no longer have time alone together. It's not that I don't want to show you, but it can't be helped. How childish. Boras basically teleported in front of Jin and showed him the small tooth. It was way smaller than when it was removed from his mouth. The perfect size for Jin's mouth. And with lightspeed hands, Boras instantly grabbed Jin by the chin again. Jin hung his tongue out. I should learn agility from this one. Anyway, can I really just take someone else's tooth like this? Felt a little wrong. But without a moment to reject, Boras was already pushing the tooth into his gum. Hee, you'll love it, apprentice. Whoop. As soon as the molar hit his gum, roots grew from the tooth and planted itself into Jin's mouth. About to grimace at the pain, Jin realized that the foreign object used mana. This feels like using a rune page. Magic was being used from the tooth. And surprisingly, the magic seemed to transfer memories. The techniques of Glory Blade traveled from the molar and into Jin's brain. Chapter 183. Inheriting Shadow Blade. 6. The illustrious legend tribe didn't just possess the strength to challenge the gods. 5,000 years ago, their magical foundations were impressive, even when compared to that of modern civilization. We never had a class of people called magicians, However, anyone who could wield magic worked as a blacksmith, just like me. Boras puffed his chest, and Jin held in his surprise. Memory transfer magic. He knew that the Histers passed down that magic, and to his knowledge, that magic was exclusive to their clan. Not many others could cast it or knew about it. Even researchers had never dealt with magic that manipulated memory. Who? What? Fifth Brethren? Did you put some magic in the tooth? 'Tis a secret. I don't know what's up, Jin, but you got a real present right there. Fifth Brethren is the most talented blacksmith in our history. We even used to stand in line just to get our equipment touched. Of course, these are all stories from our prime. Not only was he an exceptional blacksmith, Boras was also an incredible warrior. Thank you. I will use it wisely. I guess there needs to be some reciprocation. Since I gave you my tooth, you must offer me your second achievement. Why are they so addicted to achievements? Jin wanted to ask, but he just nodded instead, though he didn't really know what his next task was. January 20th, 1797. A month passed since Jin arrived in La Ferosa. During that time, he received training from Garmand and Boras. He practiced Soul Slash and learnt how to use his body more efficiently from Boras, making his body lighter, controlling his power, exerting 120% of his power. The techniques taught by Boras were wild and beastly, yet marvelous. I thought you'd stick with your own beliefs and remain egotistical and stubborn, but you're doing very well. You're just teaching well, Boras. No way. For us illustrious legends, aura comes from the heart. We channel this aura to different parts of the body to strengthen and lighten them. Imitating me this well is your skill. These beastmen had a special gem which fueled their power, but Jin did not have such a source. However, from Jin's chest, a triangular aura shone, just like a gemstone heart. He had concentrated and formed his own aura heart to imitate the skillful warriors. It wasn't an easy feat. Any talented warrior could create a room-like gemstone heart. However, turning that newly formed source into a real gemstone heart was a different issue. No matter how trained a warrior was, learning such a skill was impossible in 10 years, let alone a month. If it weren't for that new molar, it would have been even harder. Jean could master the aura techniques thanks to Boris's implant. He could advance his skills ahead of time thanks to those memories. Boris knew of this fact, but he was still impressed. You're more fun to teach than Timar, he. The fourth legend brethren will come this afternoon. She will teach you the second technique of Shadow Blade. HM? The fourth legend is coming this afternoon? Why was I not told? It's because we decided this morning, eighth brethren. I specifically requested it. We previously planned this for when he overcame the shadow vacuum, but seeing this kid's progress, now won't be a bad time. At those words, Garmin grinned. Do you think I don't know how you feel? You just want to eat this kid's achievement as soon as you can. Boris looked away and opened his little bundle. For lunch, the three of them sat and ate traditional cookies together. Cacto had no taste. However, just like the water that Valeria gave him in the Great Desert, it helped him recover quickly. May I pack some of these when I return? If the battle goddess allows. Nom, nom, nom. Finishing off the last of the cookies, he trained Soul Slash for 2 hours, and the fourth legend entered the training grounds. A woman with a massive, colossal sword on her back. The one who never reveals emotions. Garmin was easy to deal with, and Boris was already in favor of Jean. He could easily get close to them, but not all of the legends would be like that. Hello, I'm Jean Runcandle. Jean approached and greeted her. She did not speak and just nodded. Does she not like me? I can't read her expression at all. Jean thought of greeting her once more, but Boris clapped his hands as if he just remembered something. Oh yeah, the fourth legend can't speak. A speaking disability. Jean interpreted it like that, but Garmin added on. She's doing silence training. It's been a while. Ever since. Laferosa's time stopped. She nodded. Silence training? Why do such a thing? He had heard of Vankela's saints doing such training, but he had never heard of warriors doing it. Besides, if she doesn't talk, how will she communicate? While the number of questions were growing, the fourth legend drew her sword. And with ludicrous speed, she wrote words on the ground. Rinpa, that was her name. Rinpa, nice to meet you. Fourth brethren, this is the language of the mainland. Rinpa hadn't written in her own language. Garmin and Boris looked very surprised. Ha ha ha, I knew something was up when you stayed in your room all day. You learned a new language for our new Urk. The colossal sword cut off his words. Rinpa poked him to make him shut his mouth. The warning poke was a hefty stab. Garmin barely parried the sword and flew towards the sky. As she prepared for another attack, Boris stopped her. Are you really thinking of splitting brother Garmin in half? Nod, nod. Come on, don't do such things in front of the kid. Garmin's mouth blabbers every day. Nod, nod. Rinpa lowered her sword and Garmin sighed in relief. An easy way to see the hierarchy amongst their strengths. It also served to demonstrate Boris's authority. Jean found it awkward. Like, is there anything to be embarrassed about? Damn, I might have tried to kill him too. Thankfully, Jean dealt with these kinds of people all the time. To Jean, Rinpa was similar to Yona. I should treat her like I treat Yona. That might be the most effective method. Asterisk 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 translator, J proofreader, Yukitokata / eternal asterisk asterisk asterisk, and as expected, Rimpa's personality was very similar to Yona's. That wasn't particularly good though. Their personalities were just similar, not the same. Subsequently, no particular interaction occurred between Jean and Rinpa. She treated Jean like a glorified plaything. Just like when Jean arrived in Sale, Rinpa constantly toyed with Jean, going into complete silence after showing the second technique or hitting Jean with her sword when he's practicing Soul Slash, as if trying to convey that something was wrong. Cube. If it weren't for Mind's Eye, the sword would have landed on his head 5 times. Every time he parried the attack, he felt his entire body fall apart. Looking at him, Rinpa beamed with satisfaction. He had no idea if she was proud of her strike or the manner he blocked it in. Jean, however, did not retaliate. Why are you doing this? What do you want? Why do you attack? For people like Sister Yona, I have to play the waiting game. Wait for them to approach me first. Garmand and Boraz found Jin's behavior rather strange. They remembered when Timar first met Rinpa, which led to absolute chaos. Jin finally received the fruits of his labor after 10 days. Koksk, Koksk, Sachk. After the first day, Rinpa wrote on the ground again. Why do you not ask the name of the second technique? I've shown it to you many times. Jin grinned. Of course. Jin immediately wiped his grin and met Rinpa's eyes. I wasn't too curious. Why? Besides that, can you even consider this as silence training? Rinpa's eyes widened. In my opinion, silence is not only the lack of speech. It also implies completely severing communication with others. Oh, I think Jin got it spot on? That sounds about right. Garmand and Boraz turned and looked at Rinpa. Rinpa stood there, listless, repeating Jin's statement in her head. And finally, the icing on the cake. You ask me why I don't want to know the second technique's name? I do not want to learn from someone who flaunts the name, so I didn't bother asking. If you want to teach me, please show me something amazing, like Garmand and Boraz did. Oh, Garmand and Boraz sighed. They didn't think Jin would push Rinpa to a corner like this. Even the battle goddess wouldn't dare question her like this. When Jin turned to practice once more, it's not that. For the first time in 5,000 years, Rinpa spoke. Well, for her and the tribe, she had opened her mouth for the first time in 20 years. Garmand and Boraz lost their marbles. Be brethren, your silence. Brethren Rinpa, are you all ready? The two stuck right next to Rinpa, but she just ignored them. Rinpa looked into Jin's eyes and spoke. I show you. Something incredible. They were stupid. Jin swallowed his laughter. He knew that he could complete Rinpa's training in a cinch. Chapter 184. Inheriting Shadow Blade. 7. Swoosh. Fwhip. Rinpa's colossal sword swiftly cut through the air, splitting through space like butter. Coated with spiritual energy, it looked like a massive black pole being swung around. Left, right, down, up. Particles of energy sparked everywhere after each swing. It looked very flashy and cool, but it seemed like normal swinging to Jin. However, with a little more focus, he was able to see it. There were two swords that slashing through the air. The sparks had been concealing the other blade. In fact, he never saw the second sword in the first place. Whenever she swings, a mirror image of the sword appears on the opposite trajectory. When she swung to the left, a shadow image would appear to the right. The same occurred in the other direction. As long as the sword was moving, there was a shadow of it moving in the opposite direction. At any particular moment, two swords cut through the air. Is this really the second technique? She was just showing a sword covered in spirit energy. The sword's dance quickened. Sweat gathered on her forehead, and the colossal sword drew more trajectories per second. Jin mindlessly watched her swing away at the air. He had never thought of wielding two swords while holding only one. Rinpa was demonstrating what a dual wielder could do with one sword. Thump! Finishing her sword dance, she dropped the sword on the ground. Garmand and Boraz began to clap, and so did Jin. She deserved it. How was that? That was amazing. You never did this before. Did you want me to pay attention first? Jin almost spoke those words, which probably would have ended his career. Your silence? Is it all right, Rinpa? Garmand and Boraz couldn't believe that Rinpa terminated her training just for a child. It is all right. No need to be so worked up. We must tell the others. Yeah, she can communicate with us and the apprentice. She couldn't even talk to Timar back then. The two legends sprinted away to announce the news. Jin and Rinpa were alone in the training grounds now. Jin gave an awkward smile. Sheer. Pardon. That's the name of the second technique. Apprentice. A fitting name. The second blade image makes the blade work analogous to a pair of scissors. Can you mimic? Isn't it something that I can't just imitate and perform? And this sword is a problem too. Jin pointed to Shadow Vacuum on his hip. The sword continued to drain all of Jin's spiritual energy. Shadow Vacuum is like a sheath. When you draw your sword, draw out the spirit energy from the sword along with it. Yes, I have been feeling that recently. It doesn't just eat up my spiritual energy. Instead it gathers it in a pool. Jean shrugged. So, why were you not talking for so long? No one listened. To what? That we shouldn't challenge gods. I believe that it was the right punishment for not being able to prevent such a fate from befalling them. A damnation rather than training. Rinpa believed that her tribe's extinction was her fault. Jean sympathized with her, but he didn't verbally console her. Probably wasn't what she wanted to hear. I finished my punishment thanks to you. Very easily, on top of that. I am finally able to speak for the first time since 20 years. So I will now tell you everything I know. The moment she began to explain the second technique, Garmund and Boras returned, along with a dozen others. I guess will continue tomorrow. Jean Runcandle. Rinpa. Fourth legend. It's finally over. Some of them questioned Jean on how he did it, which caused Jean to look away. The others didn't seem to not know why she had been silent. Jean tried to slip away, but Boras grabbed him. I will now consume your second achievement. But I haven't done anything. Didn't you open Rinpa's mouth? Hee. This air must be inhaled by me. Boras took deep breaths as if he were going to dive underwater. Jean burst into laughter. He looked like a dog trying to eat the falling snow. He could never know what these beastmen were. He sometimes doubted if these beastmen ruled the world 5,000 years ago. ***** translator. J. Proofreader. Yukid Okada/Eternal. It was a shame that Rinpa had been mute. Her explanations were immaculate. Thanks to her, Jean learned how to overcome the cursed sword and use Shadowblade's second technique. In just 2 weeks, he finished his training. Of course, he just learned how to do it, but didn't really master it. However, since he knew how to do it, mastering the skill through practice was only a matter of time. February 1797. Van visited him personally and took the shadow vacuum. She thought that it was enough. You're doing well. She spoke those words, but she was actually slowly erasing Timar's shadow off of Jean. Of course, Jean couldn't make that out from her curt comments. Subsequently, Tantel returned Bradamanti. I thought I couldn't use this since it supported my spiritual energy? You must use it starting today. I told you that sparring would begin once you completed your training. Jean had been waiting for this moment. I wanted to go head-to-head with one of these guys when I first came to La Ferosa. The legends and goddess were out of his reach. He knew that without having to cross swords a single time. The legends are at least 9 stars, maybe even 10. And the goddess could not even be evaluated. She was on the same level as Timar or even Siren. But I have no idea about the other warriors. Probably beyond the average white wolf or orange tiger tribes. The first legend will select your first opponent. Honestly, I think it's a bit too early. You speak like I'm guaranteed to lose. Tantel nodded. Certainly, a 17-year-old baby fighting an illustrious legend warrior. It would never happen back in the day. And the first legend does not like you. Why? Ha ha ha. Isn't it the obvious reaction since you acted arrogant at first? Only the 4th, 5th, and 8th looked away. Tantel's laughter immediately disappeared. He looked straight into Jin's eyes. Instead, if you perform well, you can instantly change the public's opinion of you through the first legend. I'm rooting for you. Good luck. I'm sure you've already noted my advice. He had experienced the illustrious blade works. Although he didn't see it in person, he had it in his memory. Van and Tantel left the training ground, and Garmund shook his head. You're definitely strong enough. No, you're beyond strong. I can't even believe you're a human. So don't be too downed, kiddo. Tantel spoke as if I'd lose, and you speak like I already lost. I've never lost my determination, though. Boras and Rinpa looked at Jean with the same thought. Ho-ho, I'm a little worried. I think you're the type who'd be scarred from one failure. Same here. Those who have an endless uphill climb tend to work like that. A lot of worry. In their faces. But Jean, you must also learn how to stand up from failure. Affirmative. Failure is the key component for growth within a warrior. Outside, Timar never lost a single time, but he had an insane loss streak in La Ferosa. An interesting piece of news. Garmund, How strong was Timar during his first spar? Stronger than you. Maybe 1 or 2 steps ahead. I see. 1 or 2 steps. And yet he didn't beat a single warrior. Do you see why we're worried? After his first battle, Timar quit eating. We're thinking you might have some similar characteristics as him. Garmand, Boraz, and Rinpa were completely misunderstanding. One loss isn't anything. I don't know why they're so worried. I lost over 100 times fighting Lady Elisa. Contrast to Timar, Jean was used to countless failures prior to La Ferosa, and attaining success at the end as well. ****, the first legend selected a warrior named Shaku. He was longsword user deemed as Shaku of Lightning. All 77 beast men came to watch the battle. The others had the same expectations as Garmand, Boraz, and Rinpa. They wondered how many swings it would take to defeat Jean. About 30 of them chose within 10, while the others selected smaller numbers. The only ones who thought different was Van and Jean. Inheritor, are you ready? Shaku spoke in a booming voice as his gemstone heart gleamed. Shing he swiftly drew his sword. The sword reflected the gemstone's light in all directions. I wish for you to come at me with the intent to kill. What? It's just a spar. So I get rusty when I'm not on the edge. Whatever. I tolerate your little tricks. However, this time it's too far. The worst thing on this planet are humans who don't know their place. It's disgusting. Jean grinned. You'll learn some other things today. From Jin's chest, a triangular light burned brightly, almost identical to the one on Shaka's chest. The aura from the light spread to Bradamanti. Murderous intent from Shaka's eyes fell onto Jean. He instinctively felt repulsed that a human was using illustrious bladeworks. Illustrious bladeworks? No way. Did the legend teach you? Don't know about that. But it's nice, your bladeworks. Jean made the first move. Chapter 185. Transfusion, Brethren 1. Aura poured out of Bradamanti. The triangular heart on Jin's chest gleamed like the eyes of a beast in the dead of the night. Shaku looked very startled. He never expected Jean to use illustrious bladeworks. He was expecting Shadow Blade or just a normal sword skill. Which Brethren told him this? No, rather than that, it isn't something that he can learn even when taught. Illustrious bladeworks was a skill that was made for the illustrious legends. It required the aura from the heart of light. Skills for swords, spears, bows, and martial arts. Everything was included. The heart of light was vital to execute such techniques. For thousands of years, many humans and beastmen tried to mimic the heart of light. However, they could only mimic the form, not its unique capability to utilize aura. Although the sword swinging towards Shaka's head was that of a human, it was no different from a beastman's. Pzzzzzt. Lightning flowed from Shaku's sword as well. He copied what Jean did. The two lightning bolts met, causing an explosion. Gasps could be heard from the crowd. You! Shaku didn't feel great about blocking Jin's attack with the same tech. Although he was the apprentice, he was a runt who hadn't been accepted yet. It didn't make sense for him to use illustrious bladeworks. Who taught you this? Tantel? Feels weird. I have never thought of a human using it. Even Timar, who was accepted as a brethren, couldn't master the illustrious bladeworks. No one really shared or elaborated the exact properties and memories regarding it. I feel weird as well. Not gonna lie, I like this better than Shadow Blade. Shadow Blade was a very meticulous and quiet skill. On the other hand, illustrious bladeworks had flashy, explosive, and destructive attacks. Of the Conquerors, for the Conquerors, by the Conquerors, run candle style. Fifth Brethren. Shaku used his immense strength to deflect and fling Jean across the field. Then he sought for Boraz. What is it, Shaku? Boraz tried to look surprised as well. He tried to hide every other emotion possible. The Fifth Brethren's special attachment magic probably still works. The crowd murmured at those words. Well, obviously. Then that means that it won't matter if I rip all of his limbs off. Boraz couldn't answer, and the first battle legend Valtorok glared at him. Why can't you answer, Fifth Brethren? Does that mean you taught him illustrious blade? No! Boraz panicked on the spot. as if he were saying, "It wasn't me, it was the tooth." "Then answer Shaku. He's requesting permission." Boras paused, and Jean nodded. "Let him, Boras. Even if he cuts off my limbs, you can just stick it back on with your special attachments or whatever. It seems like it's some healing skill to help with severed limbs. But special attachments magic is not complete recovery. If I make the smallest mistake, you might never feel that limb again. It's all right. It was my idea for him to push me to the brink of death, so I'll face the consequences." Jean didn't say those words just to provoke Shaku. He was constantly treading the border between life and death, even while training. This place, La Ferosa, was not an exception. During the Compass Interception mission, who knows what kinds of monsters from Kinselo and Zipfel I will face. I have to learn as much as possible in La Ferosa before leaving. I won't spare my body a single bit. Shaku made a murderous smile. "I'll take that as a yes, Boras." At first glance, it seemed like the decision depended on the consensus between Shaku, Boras, and Valturok. But in reality, Van held all authority. Even with the conversation proceeding as follows, seeing Van make no retaliation meant that anything could happen. While Garmund, Rinpa, and Boras felt their insides burning and churning, Van looked down onto Jean with a strange look in her eyes. "Let us restart, apprentice. I'll make you pay for using our sacred arts." Shaku then let out a shout. Even though it was a simple roar, Jean felt like a hammer was pounding his head. If he didn't protect his body with aura, he would have received fatal damage from the shockwave. The White Wolf tribe is just a bark compared to this. This is almost like a dragon's roar. Now, the battle felt something more than just a spar. Jean felt his mouth dry. Crackle, crackle. Lightning wrapped around Shaku. The air suddenly became heavy, and it felt like the gravity got stronger. Jean gathered some mana. It's great that I can go all out without having to hold back. Compared to his depleted aura, Jean had sufficient mana. He decided to summon Tess. The blue flame can't ignite. He realized that he wasn't in the normal world. Phoenixes of the fire dimension could not come to La Ferosa. It was already a dead universe. "What are you preparing, apprentice?" 5 streaks of lightning bolts headed for Jean. It was similar to the Runcandle's third decisive killing move, Meteor Shower. This was actually one of the basic skills. Containing the aura from the heart of light, lightning smited after every swing. Jean couldn't gather aura properly, so receiving the impact was not very enjoyable. Boom! He swiftly dodged each attack and prepared a new spell. I need an opportunity to use Shadow Blade's first technique. Without Tess, the only way was close combat. Shaku excelled in speed, strength, stamina, and every other physical aspect. Jin's blessed body hadn't awoken fully yet, while Shaku was a fully developed illustrious legend. And there were thousands of them before they went extinct. He had to finish it in one strike. The only way for David to defeat Goliath was one critical strike. However, penetrating the 7-star crackling lightning aura was impossible. Even if he saw a gap and swung at it, the gap wouldn't be exposed the next moment. His sword would bounce off due to the repulsion from the lightning, just like the Heron's secret technique, Dragon Blade Armor. Unlike Dragon Blade Armor, there was no counterattack, but Shaku's deft hands kept Jean busy. The form of the aura changed. Seeing that Jean had been running around the battlefield, he changed strategies. Shiyang. A new aura was produced by the Heart of Light and seeped into the sword. Now, every time Jin's sword met Shaku's, he felt a pulling sensation. It was similar to dozens of hands trying to resist his motion. Due to this, he had to use 3 times as much aura to move around, which meant that his stamina would decrease thrice as fast, so dodging was no longer an option. Is it the suppression technique? A skill he remembered from the Molar. Illustrious Bladeworks, suppression, which basically turned the sword into a big magnet. There was a reason why their entire tribe was remembered as a legendary tribe. Gotcha! Shaku caught Jin's collar. The 2 swords stuck together as if they were magnets. Jin flung his fists towards Shaku's fists. Many punches were exchanged, and Jin felt like his hands were breaking instead of his targets. Shaku laughed, continuing to receive Jin's blows. So, is it my turn yet? A fist bigger than his head flew towards him. Lightning flowed throughout the fists as well. He quickly activated Myelta's rune. If not for it, his face would have been completely disfigured. Shaku looked surprised. The hell is this? It's a secret helm, dumbass. All right, but you're going to regret it. Next, Shaku went for Jin's chest. And instead of guarding with his arm, he took the opportunity to target Shaka's eyes. Jin charged towards Shaku's right eye with his index finger coated with shadow energy. Got it. He didn't know if Shaka's injury could be cured by special attachments. But if he didn't go for it, then he would lose. Thankfully, he felt like the finger was going to hit. And it did. At the same time, Shaka's fist met Jin's chest. Boom! He felt like his entire body was broken, shattered into pieces. If he didn't have the black light cuirass, then he would have bitten the dust. It was all thanks to Siren that he could make this attack without worrying about any other consequences. Ki-herk! But the armor didn't absorb all of the impact. Facing the ground, Jin vomited blood. He regretted making this decision. Shit! What kind of guy has eyes this strong? His finger broke, and it wasn't due to the aura around his body. Jin was certain that he hit Shaka's eyeball. But Shaka's eyes looked fine, while Jin's index finger was flaccid. Ah, our eyes are as hard as our hearts. It seems that you didn't know. We weren't the best for nothing. Thump! Shaku threw another massive punch on Jin's chest. Crack! His ribs cracked one by one from the impact. He quickly lost consciousness. I'll cut your limbs as promised. I hope to see a less cocky battle apprentice. Chapter 186. Transfusion? Brethren 2. Where am I? Jin was surrounded by walls on all four sides, and the ceiling was right in front of his face. He couldn't feel his limbs. His thighs, especially, felt like they were burning from the inside out. I guess Shaku cut my legs off. He wasn't lying about severing my limbs. Did Boras stick them back on? Severance injuries were an area that even the best healers could not deal with. However, Jin decided not to compare this tribe to entities in the normal world. They were not only strong, but they had insanely advanced skills and technology, comparable to the modern age. The modern world would never understand this tribe. The average warrior, Shaku, is beyond the best guardian knight in Runcandle. Even considering Black Knights, these beastmen would have ruled the world before their extinction. Imagining this sight, Jin shuddered. Maybe the gods exterminated this tribe because they got out of control. In another moment, Vaughn spoke once more. Is it not possible, Boras? Of course I can do it. However, I don't understand why you want to offer your blood to Jin immediately. Do you want to test him? Didn't you give him your molar when you met him? Along with the memories, too. Boras paused. That's a different matter. Can this kid even retain your blood? If anything goes wrong, he'll instantly die. That's why Timar refused it in the first place. Timar and he are different. Yes, I agree. I do like Jin a little more, but the others only remember Timar because he was super strong. Do you think Jin is stronger than Timar? No, he's lacking. But only for now. Jin could only listen. His voice didn't even come out, nor could he even move his limbs. He had no way to communicate. Then why would you? After all his development, Timar became a human that even I couldn't handle. However, what happened after that? He faced the same fate as the others who disappeared from our tribe. If this child faces the same destiny, what do we have left? We will need to wait for the next apprentice. After Timar, 1,000 years passed. Unlike Sodaret's prophecies 5,000 years ago, only one apprentice came. Are you saying Jin might be the last apprentice to ever come? Yes. Above all, I don't hear Sodaret's voice from this child at all. Something must have happened to the god of shadows. This child's death might cause our world to fall apart. Boras sighed. It seems you want to give Jin everything we have. But this is a huge gamble. If it is as you said, and if Jin can't handle the blood, everything is over. Seeing the battle with Shaku, I don't think that'd happen. If the worst happens, then maybe he wasn't meant to be. It's been a while since I've seen you so desperate. I would call it anticipation rather than desperation. Well, whatever. If you say so, then I don't have any rebuttal. I will begin the transfusion. Let's pray that Jean can retain the blood. A moment later, the little chamber was filled with Vaughn's blood. Jean closed his eyes and welcomed the blood. ***** translator. J. proofreader. Eternal *****. Thank goodness, he drank the 1,000 poison antidote. Jin's body sensed Vaughn's blood as an external poison. So over the course of a month, he developed a resistance to such an external concoction. As a result, the blood's negative effect disappeared, and only the divinity filled his body. As soon as he woke up, he felt it. If it weren't for the antidote, he wouldn't have woken up for an entire year, or he wouldn't have woken up at all. He saw Vaughn when he opened his eyes. While Jean lay in the chamber, she never moved a single step. "Welcome back, apprentice." "I don't know what to say." Boris offered his molar, and this time it's blood. Without my permission as well. "Did you want to decline? Did I ever have such jurisdiction? You knew that I was awake when you had the conversation with Boris. If you feel disrespected, then I apologize. That is not my point. Well, I guess it's like making a contract with another god. You're the goddess of battle. Very peculiar. I thought you'd try to argue with me. If you were my enemy, then I would have. I had no mind to argue with you in the first place. I have no time to do so. I must return before May." Jean knew that a month had passed. While the antidote did its work, he had been conscious. It was March 16, 1797. Jean only had 2 more months planned in La Ferosa. He had to return before June 1st, the date of the compass interception operation. "How's your body?" "Very good. I feel light and powerful. Though, it feels weird that I have a heart of light on my chest." Jean pointed to his chest. Not a heart made from aura, but a real heart formed from Vaughn's blood. It glimmered in the light. It was the size of Jin's fist, but the aura inside was not small. "Just because I have this probably doesn't mean I am one of the brethren. I'm sure the retaliation from Shaku and the others might become worse. On the other hand, Garmand, Boras, Rinpa, and Bellas would appreciate it very much." "Probably. Did you think that I couldn't change their minds without your help?" Jean met Vaughn's eyes. If he heard a confirmation or a blatant lie, he would break the heart without remorse. "If I say no, will you break the heart? Since it isn't strength you acquired yourself." Vaughn read him like a book, and as always, Jean formulated a ponderous answer. "Exactly so. However, this heart is something I acquired myself. Though it wasn't something I wanted immediately. If I didn't meet your expectations, then you would have never offered the transfusion in the first place. I merely take this as a process of inheritance." "So why do you want to break it?" "I can do whatever I want with anything that I acquired. If it was a power that you wanted to share, then I would not even think of breaking it. I would never destroy something that isn't mine." Vaughn smiled. "You would have gotten accepted by the others well enough without my blood. Then I will use it well." Jean wore the robes kept beside his chamber. Clang, clang. While he absorbed the blood, he kept hearing some hammering from Boras's smithery. "I will be practicing the second technique of Shadow Blade. Do I spar with Shaku in the afternoon? The 7th legend will also be in the training area. Bellas will teach you the 3rd technique. I love the tight schedule. I hope to see you in the afternoon. ****, training in the morning and sparring in the afternoon." And just like that, 49 days passed. Jean had 49 losses against Shaku, and every time he lost, he got a limb severed. Boras slapped it back on every day. The illustrious legends were unstoppable. If gaining the Heart of Light would instantly close the gap, every warrior in the world would seek such a heart. However, every time Jean lost, he got a better taste and feeling of how strong these monsters were. At first, he thought that Shaku was very strong. But after 10 battles, Jean compared Shaku to Luna. After 20 battles, he doubted his comparison with Luna, and after 30 times, he scrapped his comparison completely. After 40, he felt certain that he could sever one of Shaku's arms. Just from the way he viewed his opponent, Jean knew he was growing at an insane rate. If Luna was a far mountain, Shaku was the first hill that started to reveal its peak. Why the long face, Shaku? Are you bored of me? Jean enjoyed each battle, while Shaku got more and more hesitant to fight aggressively. Even the first legend, Volturok, who always looked at Jean without any emotion, no longer viewed him with contempt. They didn't want to admit it, but even Shaku and even Volturok cherished Jean. He wasn't arrogant ever since the battle goddess accepted him. He didn't hate anyone even, though his limbs were being chopped off, and he never gave up through countless defeats. In fact, since the others had been caring about Jean ever since, they felt that beating him to a pulp was not ideal. Not that, but I feel like you've grown on me. Cutting you has become very awkward. Yeah, just like when Timar was here. He didn't speak those words in front of the crowd. At some point, no one mentioned Timar to Jean. I said that I won't be trained well with such a hesitant mindset. Let's do it right. All right. Wait. Vaughn. Someone sought Vaughn. It was Tantel. What is it? Tantel? Jean Runcandle must leave La Ferosa soon. It also seems that Shaku and the first legend accepted Jean. Continue. I think we should accept him as our brethren and give him an opportunity to clash swords with the others. Shaku has taken up too much time. I agree. The brethren who cared for him could only watch this entire time. Please give us a chance as well. Shaku nodded first. I feel like that as well. I wish to see others spar with Jean. Even Shaku tried to convince Vaughn, so she nodded. Understood. Then if all of the brethren accept it, we shall proceed with the general opinion. Chapter 187, Transfusion, Brethren 3, Volturok, who initially rejected Jean, and the others who hadn't fought Jean, came to a consensus. I wasn't anticipating this. The time had been too short. He arrived at the end of December last year, which meant that had been in La Ferosa for only 5 months. Initially, he thought that getting acknowledged by all of the beastmen would be a grand challenge, since not all of them had nice personalities like Garmund, Boras, Rinpa, or Bellas. Therefore, he planned on coming back to La Ferosa another time. Either way, he felt that mastering Shadowblade would require 1 or 2 more visits. I feel like this is too easy. The others, however, thought differently. They found out about Jean helping Boras gain a deeper understanding of Shadowblade's first technique, receiving Boras's molar, and ending Rimpa's mute training. Just from that, all of the other legends thought of Jean as a funny, peculiar fellow. Their opinion continued to get better as they watched him in the battles with Shaku. They saw a talented young man with undeniable tenacity. Constantly repeating days of defeat and loss of limbs wasn't an easy feat. Jean often shook these events off, remembering days from his past life. Well, I guess there's nothing bad about that. I'm missing out on cutting off Shaka's leg, though. The legends concluded their vote, and the other warriors shouted in agreement. However, it didn't look like they were agreeing just because of the authority. It wasn't because they had to side with the majority either. No such hierarchy existed amongst the beastmen. There was no punishment nor compelling reason to be dependent on others. Every member was independent. Even if there were any disagreements, no one would bat an eye. The battle goddess requested unanimous consensus because of this. As the final member, Shaku raised his voice. I have cut Jin's limbs 49 times. However, now that he is our brethren, there will be no such harm. What in the world? Don't I even get a chance for revenge? A disrespectful one indeed. The kings of light do not calculate vengeance. Just remember this, brother Jean. Shaka smiled and walked away. The battle goddess nodded. Since everyone agrees upon the verdict, Jean Runcandle is now one of us. Proceeding with Tantal's proposal. Brethren, select your order to fight Jean. Immediately, the 12 legends began to argue on the order. Let me go first. You should go first. Like children standing in line. I first brought him here, so I should be first. Don't you think so? Nope. Tantel brought him first and you clashed swords once. Therefore, you should go last. My brethren, we should just choose by rock, paper, scissors. It was also like this when they were deciding who should bathe Jean. Felt like a crowd of dogs barking at each other. They're a funny bunch. Jean felt nothing after being accepted by them. They never really interacted with Jean, nor made an important connection with him in the first place. The seventh legend, Bellas approached him. Even though we never hung out or share blood, even though we look different or have different objectives. Jean looked up to Bellas. Once you become a brethren, they will continue to treat you like they used to. That is the way of our tribe. How is that possible, Bellas? If your tribe understood that 5,000 years ago, we would have killed much less of your kind. He felt like he was being struck on the head. The illustrious legends were not idiots, but just a tribe that Jean couldn't understand. If you think about it, there's nothing weird, my brother. We know that you became one of us after you absorbed our blood, and none of us think it's weird at all. Technically speaking, your existence in this realm basically made your merging with our tribe inevitable. It's strange. So you're saying that I feel a new connection with the others since I received some measly formal declaration. I feel very indifferent about that. When the river mixes with the sea, what happens? Does the seawater reject and segregate from the river water? I thought you were a strong, energetic woman at first, but now you speak like a philosopher. I'm impressed, Bellas. The argument stopped. The 64 warriors divided up and played in a tournament style, and surprisingly, Shaku came in first. Wait, aren't you supposed to not be here? I thought you returned to your lodging. You're going to fight him again. All kinds of disapproval sprouted from the crowd, but they couldn't argue against the winner of the ultimate decider known as rock, paper, scissors. Receiving all kinds of complaints, he walked up to Jean. Of course I deserve another chance. You ripped my body apart 49 times. That's the first time that happened. Today I will definitely... Thump! Bellas's huge hand pressed onto Jin's shoulder. The strength was immense. Jean couldn't shake her hand off. It is no longer a fight between brethren and apprentice, but it is between brethren and brethren. Do not forget that, Jean. You look like you would disintegrate my shoulder bones if I don't nod. Jean expected Bellas to be the strongest amongst the legends. Injuring the opponent without using the blade is fine. The most important part is to remove all intentions of killing. Now that's something I'd like to hear. Then please take this for me. Jean unshackled his sheath from his waist. Our 50th fight will be hand-to-hand combat. Shaku. It's going to be worse though. With genuine worry. Shaku shook his head, and Jean gritted his teeth. Up till now, he wanted to rip him apart, but now he couldn't. After Shaku, it will be Muka, then Shul Anodi, and you have to fight dozens, so don't tire yourself out. After his first spar with Shaku, he would fight 64 more warriors until the next morning. This would go on for today, the day after, and the next. Asterisk asterisk. Asterisk translator. J proofreader. Eternal asterisk asterisk asterisk. Shit, that motherfucker. How dare he let me win? Jean claimed his first victory against Shaku. He popped a photon cannon in front of him and then proceeded to beat him to a pulp. But before 5 hits, Shaku forfeit, which prevented Jean from pounding him further. Such annoyance. Jean felt like exploding, but now was not the time. He had another opponent ready for him. The more infuriating part was that the others truly went all out. The fighting techniques were from different worlds. If they both held weapons, then Jean would have gotten less injured. After every battle, Jean chuckled and sought Cacto, the traditional cookies. Crunch, crunch. His bruises quickly healed. His face had inflamed like a melon, and he had many bruises all over his body. Thankfully, no bones were broken. Those monsters, feasting on the cookies as he lay on his bed. Jean constantly chuckled at himself. He felt refreshed as he bathed in the moonlight that seeped through the window. Knock, knock. Someone was at the door. Jean, I'm coming in. How do you say you're coming in when I didn't even ask who it was? Tantel came in with 2 huge barrels of wine. Thump. He dropped the barrels on the ground, summoned a goblet out of nowhere and served Jean a shot. This is the wine I drank on the first day. It tasted like shit. It's crystal wine. It'll taste different. Downing the cup, Jean tasted a deeper sweet taste. Whoa. It's because you earned the heart of light. But you said humans don't know the taste. Tell me about the outside world. I came alone since the others don't like to talk about it in public. Now that he mentioned it, Jean realized that they never asked about the outside world. Who ruled the land that they once did, what happened to their civilization, what happened to the people that they fought. They asked no questions. After our time stopped, we could never return to that world. This place just looks like La Ferosa, but it's more like a purgatory. Doesn't that make you more curious of the outside world? What's the point of wanting something you can never attain? Even though we reminisce, none of our past brethren are there anyways. However, Tantel looked around carefully. He made sure no one was around to hear something important. I have heard some things from the goddess herself. What's that? Since 500 years have passed in the real world, maybe there's something that could get us out of here. Unfortunately, to Jin's knowledge, there was nothing that could do such a thing. Like the fire dimension, the world of the phoenixes, humans were not used to creating permanent links between other worlds. There weren't many researchers in that field either. After the War of the Holy Kingdom, most magic-related research groups banned the study of otherworldly creatures. Additionally, otherworld-related magic often included dark magic. Since dark magic had been generally banned throughout history, it was the social norm to never encroach that domain. On that note, if it's all right, I'd like you to investigate it. Isn't there a way for you to escape? Tantel, you came to get me in the first place. That's only when the apprentice arrives at the rendezvous point near the desert. Beyond that, there's only one other way to exit, but it's pointless. Why? The battle goddess will tell you. Chapter 188. Leaving La Ferosa, after becoming a brethren of the Plutonian tribe, Jean had only 2 weeks left. For 4 days, Jean was trained by battle kings and sparred with ordinary warriors. Every day for 4 days, Jean competed against 64 ordinary warriors, Jean in hand-to-hand fighting and martial arts. Jin's impatience was growing as the time approached to leave La Ferosa, and the time approached to launch a compass-taking operation with his companions outside. There is a high probability that the operation to steal the compass will be more dangerous than any fight he has ever fought with his companions. In this mission, they requires to deal with both Zipfel and Kinzelo at the same time. There will surely be outstanding figures from each faction at the place where the compass is retrieved, and Jean and his party decided to hit them without fear and steal the compass. Since it's a secret exchange, the patriarch of clan or the leader won't attend in person, but they will never send sloppy people. Of course, Jin's party was also made up of incredible people. Jean, Murakan, Quickentel, Kashmir, Elisa. Even if you look at these 5, it is a level that no one dares to touch. But what if a large number of Zipfel's White Knights and Magic Tower Masters appeared in feudal state of Beladu? Kinzelo's side was also a problem. There are only 3 9-star mages confirmed by the 7-colored peacock, and who knows there are how many warriors higher than Goltep. On the day of the operation, we would withdraw quietly if there are talented people of Zipfel and Kinzelo that we could not handle, but if not this time, I don't know when I'll be able to take the compass away. It was a rare stroke of luck that Yona obtained that much information from Buber's sculpture workshop. I had to succeed. To do so, I walked through the hell called Mitra Desert and trained here. You seem uncharacteristically anxious, Brother Jean. Just as Jean was about to head to the training ground to meet the battle kings, he heard a familiar voice. Sister Vaughn, can you tell me what you are thinking? About the outside work. I have to carry out an operation with my comrades, but I wonder if my strength will be enough. That's funny. What's funny? Brother Jean, you didn't showed any sign of fear even when you came out of the main hall of Battle God's temple and faced the spirit of the Brethren Battle Kings head-on. The enemies you have to deal with outside can't be stronger than us. Although the Plutonian tribe looked rather lax and foolish. If they could leave La Ferosa, the landscape of the outside world would change in an instant. Even those who had already perished and only 77 remained. After becoming brethren, Jean could feel it more desperately. Among them, Battle God and Battle Kings are 2 different beings. To the point where Jean thought that even if the whole Zipfel clan attacked, it wouldn't be able to kill them. I am not afraid of getting hurt, but what if something goes wrong with my comrades? Some of my comrades are weaker than me. Vaughn stared blankly at Jean. Something shimmered in her dark, blue, deep eyes. It was in the past. Those long days when she had the same worries as Jean before she became the battle god. Even after Plutonian tribe was destroyed by gods, this terrible question haunted her constantly. I want to tell you that it is still too early. Worrying about others. Yes, Brother Jean is not simple or stupid like the other brethren. You must be fighting because they are definitely worthy opponents. It's never too late to start worrying about your comrades when you must fight against an enemy that you can't handle. Right now, only the anguish is increasing. But it is true that Zipfel and Kinselo are formidable. Then Vaughn smiled. Brother Jean, you don't know yourself well yet. Instead of answering, Jean pondered. I don't know myself. What does that mean? Does that mean I'm stronger than I think, and I don't have to worry about Zipfel and Kinselo? Vaughn do not know about Zipfel and Kinselo. Even knowing it, she couldn't feel as threatened as Jean felt. While this and that thought flashed through Jin's mind, Vaughn opened her mouth again. From today until you leave, you'd better spend your time with me. It mean that you will train me, Sister Battle God? I haven't finished my training with Brethren Battle Kings yet. You are the only human who can save us, Brother Jean. Therefore, when you are shaken, the entire Plutonian tribe is shaken. What do you mean? I will hold you, relieve you, and cleanse your heart, brother, so that you can see into yourself. What Vaughn held out was a sword. This is the thunder sword called Sigmund. It is my sword. Brother Boras hammered it so you could use it. Boom! Jean and Vaughn's swords collided. It was the moment when Jean saw Sigmund's blade for the first time. He received this sword for 9 days. Its pale and blue blade, as if it were made by melting sapphire, is exactly the same size as Bradamanti. For 9 days, Vaughn killed Jean over 90,000 times. So far, there is only one thing Vaughn has asked for from Jean. That he can only draw his sword when he was confident that he would die instantly. In that sense, Jean is no different from being killed by her. It was the first time when he felt that he would not die instantly and drew his sword. Whoa! Anyone can pull out a sword at a van who is just standing there. However, it was not allowed for anyone to completely mix sword with the battle god, Vaughn. It's a good blow. Vaughn smiled and said, How does it feel to have died? 90,000 pointlessly? Brother Jean. So you can do it like this. 90,000 pointless deaths. Vaughn expressed the past 9 days, when Jean was sweating in front of her and was unable to draw the sword. That way. I won't able to do it second time. Even before our time stopped, not many people could mix swords with me twice. For 9 days, Jin's actual swordsmanship skills did not increase at all. It was only natural because he was stand still. Brother Jean, you already had enough skills to mix sword with me 9 days ago. You have enough faith and skills. But you have been beaten 90,000 times because you don't know what you are doing. Vaughn spent 9 days to confirm that fact to Jean. Anguish obscures one's self-image. Now that your head is clear, you know your battle prowess is this much. You can share and sword with me. Jean couldn't help but think about this as he wiped his forehead. Of all the martial artists I know, how many of them can really exchange one move with a Sister Vaughn? None except for a few who immediately came to mind. Similar situation comes to mind when he think about people who can make move against Chiron. If you didn't know yourself and couldn't pull Sigmund in the end, I was going to retrieve the sword again. Now, no matter how many times I try, I think I can match one against you, Sister Vaughn. Since I confirmed that it was possible in the first place, so it is a natural thing. Jean smiled awkwardly. Knowing one's strength accurately is sometimes more miraculous than growing up. Jean was no longer worried about the upcoming June 1st. It's okay to let you go outside now. Next time we meet, I'm looking forward to share some interesting stories with me. Say goodbye to other brethren, and you can go back tomorrow morning. As Jean tried to lower his head, Vaughn gently held his chin. Brethren do not hold grudge or gratitude between them. That night, all members of the Plutonian tribe gathered and held a farewell banquet. The wine glasses went around until the jewel wine ran out, and Jean wanted to give the strong and innocent tribe a big gift someday. A gift is something that can be given even if it is not necessarily a return of favor. Have a good trip, brother. We must remember your achievements. May 17, 1797. After leaving La Perosa, it was an ivory-colored desert that stretched out without end, that welcomed Jean. The desert sun was so harsh that all the warmth Jean experienced in La Perosa seemed like a dream. Wearing the new clothes and robes that Boras had woven, Jean went through the desert again. After walking for 2 days, he came to an oasis, and after walking another day, he saw a forest road. It was the same forest road he had been looking for along with a toad guide to reach the great desert. It looks like I came back to same place instead of crossing the great desert. It was a relief. If rumors spread after crossing, rumors might spread all over the world that a great adventurer had been born. It is because there are not 1 or 2 beastmen who have seen Jean in the land of beastmen. Oh, human! Great desert! You came! Dark flames, friend! It was around the time Jean was leaving the forest that he ran into the water-tail beastmen. They are on their way back to the Yuka Yuka market after finishing the barter trade with the Golden Snow tribe. Human, not dead. It's a relief. I was worried. Lost love. Pain. Did you overcome? May 25th, there were still 5 days to spare. It would be okay to go leisurely chatting with them for 3 or 4 hours. Human, but you can't go to Yuka Yuka. Why? A few days ago, the Red Tiger tribesmen came. Evil bastards. All haphazard, mischievous. Turn around, there a passageway to market side, use it. Jean had to spend another 3 days to go around the Yuka Yuka market. That would make it too tight, and it could have been too late. No, then it's too late. There is a place I must go by the end of May. Are there any secret passages around here? None here. Then, let's just go. Those bastards might catch you and kill you, human. All the way to Yuka Yuka market, the Watertail tribesmen talked about their worries. They even dragged Jean with their dainty hand, telling him to go back. But Jean was short on time, so he can't go back. Therefore, it could be said that the encounter between Jean and 2 Red Tiger beastmen at the entrance of Yuka Yuka market was a predictable result. Ugh! It happened, trouble. Humans, what would you do? We go inside with money. But maybe you are not. For now, pretend you don't know me and go on your way. Understand? The Watertails looked back at Jean restlessly even as they passed first. The Red Tiger tribesmen take money from them, hit them in the back of the head one by one, and let them pass through. If they give you money, then just let them go. Why do you hit them? If the White Wolf tribesmen were dirty and eccentric warriors, the Red Tiger tribesmen were strong bully warriors. The 2 Red Tiger tribesmen that had been glaring at Jean from a while ago openly started arguing. Hey, you human! Come here. Stand in front of me. Give everything you have. Take off all your clothes. Open your bag. Oh, he looks like pretty human. Would we give him to females? Kiki, they will like him. But as Jean gets closer, the Red Tiger tribesmen were unable to speak for some reason. What? This human. What kind of energy is this? Not only did they stop talking, but their legs trembled against their will. Watery saliva flowed from their mouth. The hair all over their body stood on end, and they even felt like their stomach was about to melt. Such is the fear imprinted in instinct. The energy of a great race, which had often torn and trampled them, was wrapped around Jean. It has already been 5,000 years since they disappeared, but these 2 young Red Tiger tribesmen, who have never even heard their names, trembling with fear. Beastmen were afraid of their natural enemies even if no one taught them. Ooh, aha! Kiawag, Kiaha! The Red Tiger tribesmen reflexively raised their claws and screamed, "Get lost!" However, even if Jean said so, the Red Tiger tribesmen sat down and urinated on the floor instead of attacking. Spare me. Spare me. Please. They didn't even dare to look up at Jean. Chapter 189. Operation Compass Theft. 1. Jean collected the money and handed it over to the Watertail tribe. The members of the Red Tiger tribe were unable to witness this scene as they ran away with their tails between their legs. Thank you, human. As soon as they arrived at the bustling market, the members of the Watertail tribe who had been with Jean explained the situation to their fellow tribe members, and the representative Dark Flame and Blazing Rock expressed their gratitude. Rest for the day and then leave, human. The Watertail tribe knows how to throw a fiery party. Sorry, I have to leave in a hurry. See you next time. At least eat this before you go. The Watertail tribe quickly grilled 20 fish. The deliciously cooked fish disappeared as quickly as if they were trying to hide their eyes. Oh right, Dark Flame, can you dye my hair? Why do you suddenly want to dye your hair? I need to. We can't do it ourselves. Wait a moment, let me see. We'll bring in a Gold Snow Tribe Dye Master. The Gold Snow Tribe Dye Master arrived through a secret passage in the general store. Oh, human. Our dyeing technique is so advanced that it's a bit expensive. It's not comparable to the shoddy coloring games that humans play. Prices start at this level. As the Gold Snow Tribe was about to put a price tag on Jean, Dark Flame and the members of the Watertail tribe intervened. When they told the Gold Snow Tribe about Jin's feat of making the Red Tiger tribe surrender, the Gold Snow Tribe smirked. If that's the case, we can do it for free. Oh, I wish I could have seen those trashy guys grovel with my own eyes. The dyeing was finished quickly. After bidding farewell to them, Jean used the secret passage again to leave the land of the aquatic tribes, just as he had arrived. On the last day of May 1797, in the afternoon, Jean arrived at a southern island of the feudal state of Belladou. This place is still the same. This unnamed island is a land that has become a playground for pirates as it vaguely borders the waters of the feudal state of Belladou. This is the place that Jean sought out to participate in the Cosmos Arena competition. Even in broad daylight, the streets were filled with drug addicts, beggars, and nobles gone mad with gambling, creating a chaotic scene. Hee. A disheveled man who looked like a drug addict and a homeless person was lurking near Jean, letting out a strange laughter. These beggars were common in the harbor, usually mercenaries who lost a lot after participating in the arena. However, this man who seemed to be laughing hysterically was someone Jean knew well. So Jean couldn't help feeling both happy and sad to see him. Jet? He's crazy. Jet. He came here about 2 months ago and blended in with the beggars in the harbor. It was to serve as a secret contact. He was so versatile that it was hard to tell if he was a beggar if you didn't look closely. Hee. Hey, sir. Spare me a penny. Hee. Jet pushed aside the other beggars and approached with a bag. There was a note inside the bag. Are you doing well, Bill? 3 planks under the bed in room 203 at the Sparrow Inn. After checking the note and Jean donated some coins, the beggars behind Jet cheered. Wow. Hee. You'll be blessed. When Jet stepped back, the other beggars ran after him like a pack of wolves. It seemed like he was doing well as the king of beggars. I'm glad I recruited him. We had a rough relationship in our past life. Jean chuckled and headed to the Sparrow Inn. The owner, who was dozing off on the chair, clapped his hands when the door opened. I don't have a room. Go somewhere else. How have you been, Bill? Then the owner gave him the key to room 203. As soon as he entered the room, Jean pushed the bed aside and pulled off a board with 3 nails in it. Underneath the board, there was a thin red wooden board and a letter wedged inside. My lord, it's been a while. The other comrades arrived about a month to 2 weeks ago and took a place in different inns. Everyone is safe and enemy has no idea that we are onto them. Here's the information that we've gathered so far. Kinzelo's forces consist of Anza's great mage Chukon Tolder, 5 suspected 8-star mages, and 5 suspected high-ranking White Wolf warriors. There may also be other skilled assassins, snipers, and operatives in disguise that we can't exclude the possibility of. We don't have any information about Zipfel's forces. They're likely to reveal themselves on the day of the operation. However, there's a high chance that, like Kinzelo, there are already skilled operatives in place. The operation is scheduled for June 1st at 10 p.m., and there have been no changes. The location is also the same, the gambling den in the abandoned mansion in the north of the island. The red wooden board enclosed is the entry ticket to the den. The escape route after the operation is also the same for options 1, 2, and 3. The address of the inn where our comrades are staying is written on the back of this letter. Oh, and Lady Cirrus of Hidden Palace will be joining the operation with the consent of Sir Kashmir and Lord Murakan. As someone with experience in espionage, assassination, and guerrilla warfare, she will be a great help. This is the last message I'll be delivering to you, Lord. I'm heading back to Tychon today. I will inform Gilly about your safe return. Good luck, my lord. All of the comrades were staying in different inns just in case. They looked suspicious to the groups of Zipfel and Kinslow, a 9-star mage and 5 8-star mages, and 5 elite White Wolf tribe warriors. It was a force that could easily overturn any kingdom. Zipfel will definitely bring at least this much power. By tomorrow night, the dirty and messy playground of the pirates will become the battlefield of the stars. Enemies exceeded the power that Jean and his comrades had anticipated 6 months ago. Therefore, a full-scale war was out of the question. Although their power had grown stronger, it was still not enough to handle all of them. However, if Jean and his comrades' power had not grown stronger, they would have had to seriously reconsider the plan. Whether to execute the operation or to withdraw was entirely up to Jin's decision. They had agreed 6 months ago that if Jean did not reveal himself at the casino, they would quietly return. Of course, Jean had no intention of retreating. Bringing in people like this means that the compass is just as important. I will definitely take it with me. Since the operation was going to be carried out guerrilla style, there would be no need to engage in a full-scale battle with them. Even if a full-scale battle were to take place, there might be something worth fighting for. If 8 and 9-star mages and White Wolf warriors fired off all kinds of magic and techniques, this small island could crumble in an instant. Everyone would die, not just the island. All the ships would be destroyed, and a whirlpool would form in the middle of the sea, just as Luna wiped out the Vermont island with a single blow of her sword. Furthermore, if the fight escalates, Runcandle and Vermont will also catch the scent, which is what Kinslow and Zipfel are most concerned about. Runcandle and Vermont still did not clearly realize the existence of the compass. If they did, both of the giant forces people should already have been firmly established on this island. Jean quietly cleaned his 2 swords, Bradamante and Sigmund. The next day, at 6 o'clock in the evening on an early June day, Jean found the gambling den in the abandoned mansion on the north side of island. He looked like a typical rogue nobleman who had money to spend and loved to show off, with his hair dyed in a rich golden color by the product of Gold Snow tribe, flashy clothes, and heavy makeup accentuating his waist with 2 swords. I wonder why they're doing this, even though makeup has been a trend in noble social circles for quite some time now. Jean felt stuffy due to the thickly applied powder and color blocking his pores. His face reflected in the mirror looked almost like a woman's, but with pronounced physique his pretty face looked strange. It was the power of the Gold Snow tribe's special cosmetics. You seem to need some kind of disguise. My friend, you look very handsome, but if you puts on too much makeup, you looks like a woman. How about going all out woman disguise, not just dyeing your hair? No one will recognize you. I'm not comfortable with it. Anyway, makeup is a must. Our merchandise is different from human technology, so if you apply it roughly, it looks like convincing. Put this on your cheeks. Put this on your lips. Put this on your forehead. Put this on your neck. While Jean felt awkward about his appearance, the people gathered in the gambling den, regardless of gender, were busy staring at him. I've never seen such a pretty gambler before. I want to hang out with him tonight, lend him money if he's feeling down, etc. The explicit voices were disturbing Jin's ears. Although he had been recognized by his face quite a lot, it had been a long time since it had become so noisy. Even men with free tastes were openly expressing their interest. I haven't seen your face before, but the seedy gambling den feels much livelier since you came in. Nice to meet you. I'm Julia. However, the murmur ceased in an instant as a black-haired woman approached. Julia was a woman who had appeared 2 weeks ago and had become famous in the gambling den overnight. At first, Jean didn't recognize her. It wasn't as much as Buber's sculpting skills, but the masks made in the Hidden Palace were also great. In that way, all the companions were wearing the face masks of the Hidden Palace, except for Murakan, who is cradled in Cirrus' arms, transformed into butterfly. This place is known for its marble game, young master. It's a specialty here. You probably don't know the rules, but I could teach you if you'd like. Jean gently pushed her away. No, it's okay. Well, if you don't like it, there's nothing I can do about it. But if you go to the marble game table without knowing anything, you'll get ripped off, so stick to something you're familiar with, like even odd or dice. If you think of me while you're playing, come over to the marble game table. She meant for Jean to take a look and come back later. His companions were gathered at the marble game table, while Zipfel and Kinzelo's factions were disguised among the even-odd and dice tables. Let's do that. Make sure to come back before it's too late. It's almost night. To the people gathered at the gambling table, Julia sounded like a trickster who was playing tricks on Jean. After Julia left, people who were really throwing down gathered around Jean. Jean lightly brushed them off and roamed around the even-odd and dice tables, keeping an eye on the enemies one by one. Kinzelo is one thing, but those Zipfel guys are really cunning. Who would know that the mages of Zipfel, who are proud enough to pierce the sky, would disguise themselves as gamblers and wait. Here, as expected, all of Zipfel's mages seemed to be first class. Just as Jean was looking for any familiar faces, two men in robes turned and looked in Jin's direction. They were nearly 3 meters tall. Clearly, they were not ordinary people. They were White Wolf warriors. As if they sensed something strange, they looked at Jean and then stood up from their chairs and approached him. Hey you, can we talk for a moment? It was because of the aura of the Plutonian tribe. Even though I'm hiding as much as possible, did they sense it? Jean replied as he looked at them. Wow, aren't you from the White Wolf tribe? I didn't expect to see you here at the gambling den. Chapter 190. Operation Compass Theft, 2. There were those among young nobles or martial artists who often idolized the power and culture of the White Wolf tribe. They were usually fools who approached recklessly, drawn to the white fur, blue eyes, strong body and energy, only to meet their ultimate fate as a meal. White Wolf tribe doesn't like humans. To most of them, humans were inferior beings, toys, and snacks. I've always dreamed of talking to a White Wolf tribesman. Wow, your fur is so cool. Can I touch it? Jean exclaimed with sparkling eyes, and the White Wolf tribesman's impression wrinkled. Was he just an idiot? I thought he smelled dangerous enough to make my fur stand on end. The White Wolf tribe looked down at Jean, who was laughing, for a while. Put your hand away. Oh, I apologize for being rude. Sorry about that. By the way, what do you want to talk to me about? Ask me anything. No. It seems like a mistake. What? What do you mean? I don't know. As the White Wolves returned to their place, Jean smiled shyly. The people who flirted with him looked at Jean with pity. Phew. I almost got tired before the operation even started. From now on, I have to press down more on the energy of the Plutonian tribe. He wiped his chest inwardly. I must definitely kill all of Kinzelo's subordinates during the operation. If he left them alive, they would undoubtedly go back to Kinzelo and talk about someone with dangerous energy. It was okay if people knew about his disguised appearance, but if there were rumors about the unique energy of the Plutonian tribe, Jean could be caught anywhere. He spent 2 hours checking the enemies on the even-odd and dice game table. Fortunately, there was no sign of the White Wolf tribe and no one suspected Jean. I should go see my companions now. The marble game table, where his companions were, was full of onlookers. Elisa was hiding in the gap, while Kashmir and Enya were nervously placing bets. Everyone's disguise is well done. Even Elisa, who was worried about her extraordinarily large body, was perfectly disguised. She had put on a fake mustache and was dressed in men's clothing. Oh, have you thought of me already? I knew you would come, young master. Cirrus naturally wrapped her arm around Jin's shoulder and showed him her palm with something writing on it. Item will be exchanged at the second floor central card table. Now it's your turn to tell me your name, young master. Didn't I only tell you? Julia, no, Cirrus, who tightly hugged Jean, was really good at acting. She was perfectly portraying a promiscuous woman who was obsessed with gambling and entertainment. Jean was also experienced in acting. Jean grabbed Cirrus' hand, which had writing on it, after moistening his fingers with the remaining water in his glass, and then gently rubbed her palm with his finger to erase the writing. "My name is Vamel, young lady." Clack, clack, Kashmir and Enya's marbles collided on the round table. Cirrus pretended to explain the marble game and started explaining the detailed strategy that her companions had already planned. "First, 2 marbles go up on the board. Like the young lady and me now?" "Yes. Only Jean and Cirrus go up to the second floor first, meaning they are the ones who will steal the item. Then, when the other marbles start running, the dealer's obstacles start appearing. There are too many variables, there are obstacles to avoid and throw bigger marbles to break through. I usually prefer to break them. I think I like that one better. It means they should kill the enemies who block them while stealing the compass. You have to choose the marbles that break the obstacles and the marbles that run to the finish line. Even if you use almost all marbles to break the obstacles, you can run alone if there is only one left." Cirrus' gaze was subtly directed towards Enya as she spoke. Finally, Enya is appropriate to run away with the compass means. Jin's companions concluded that Enya would be least suspicious of any situation. Enya felt the complete opposite of Cirrus. Unlike Cirrus, who swept away the stakes as soon as she entered the gambling den and showed off her stunning beauty, Enya was like an ant. She had always played the role of a hot pants who bet only small amounts with a restless face. No one looked less composed than her. Is the explanation enough? Is there anything else I need to be particularly careful about? Don't hesitate too much or waver if too many marbles that remove obstacles are broken. You can't miss the opportunity. That's why the scums always lose money. It means that even if a comrade is injured or killed, the mission would fail if one became engrossed in the emotion. Jean made eye contact with Cirrus with a calm face. "It's good advice. I feel like I could easily become an expert." In this way, Jean talked about operation with Cirrus until around 10 o'clock at night. Then, he repeatedly lost money to Cirrus and showed signs of irritation. "Ha, is the young lady a god of marble game? How can you not win a match?" Onlookers clicked their tongues. It wasn't just a buck or two. The money Jean lost to Cirrus was already going beyond 1,000 gold coins. Jean was a rare type of rich sucker who lost 1,000 gold coins in just a few hours at this gambling den. "Well, it seems that young master is not good at marble game. Didn't I tell you to give up and go drink?" "Humph. You just want to drink alone after winning like that. Are you really regretting losing a few gold coins? You have a chance to have a drink with Julia alone until tomorrow morning. You know, I don't mind spending money, but as a gambler, my pride won't allow me to end like this. I may not know how to play marbles, but in other gambling games, young lady won't stand a chance." "Oh, you're confident in other games?" Ah! Sighs of lamentation could be heard among the onlookers. They realized that another sacrificial lamb had emerged. "I have to make young lady suffer a crushing defeat at least once to satisfy my conscience. Looks like your spirit is still intact. What game do you want to play? If it's cards, young lady can never beat me. The card game is on the second floor. Let's go, young Master Vamel." With a wicked smile, Cirrus stood up, and the onlookers crowded around them, eager to witness the handsome fool surrendering all his assets to Cirrus and becoming a weeping mess. Naturally, most of the people who had been on the marble table rushed to the second floor card table. However, Elisa, Enya, and Kashmir did not leave the marble table. They had plans to carry out a distraction mission on the first floor. The two of them took a seat next to the central card table where the deal between Zipfel and Kinzelo was taking place. At the central card table, Zipfel representative was disguised, while Kinzelo's representative, Chukon Toddlerer, sat with a bare face easily recognizable. "It looks like the master of the magic tower, but I don't know who it is." As the onlookers at the table next to me began to get excited, whispers started circulating among them. Now, 10 o'clock was approaching, and they had to exchange coins and items on the gambling table. However, the sudden influx of people nearby made them uneasy. The representatives of Kinzelo and Zipfel, who were on the first floor, came up and informed the organizers about the situation. They reported that there seemed to be a nerve-wracking conflict between ordinary gamblers who had made their way up from the marble table. There are 20 minutes left, until Zipfel took out a compass on the card table. In 20 minutes, when the items came out, Jean and Cyrus would launch their surprise attack. It was crucial to make Jean lose all his bets at exactly that time and make the onlookers retreat. When the onlookers leave with frustrated expressions, I'll slip away, and Cyrus will. Pretend to leave first. Then I'll follow slowly, and as the compass moves on the gambling table, I'll fire flash cannon. Cyrus will take care of the flow that makes him lose all his money in exactly 20 minutes. However, just as Jean and his companions painstakingly planned this operation for 6 months, their enemies would have prepared contingency plans for all sorts of variables. If we kill Chukan Toddlerer or render him unable to fight, there will be no problem going down to the first floor. The probability of Zipfel's representative being a mage stronger than Chukan is low. The person who appeared to be Zipfel's representative did not seem to be over 30, even accounting for disguises. Jean did not know of any mage stronger than Chukan at that age. Chukan, the great mage of Ans. He reigns as an absolute ruler of the great plain of Ans on the northern continent. Unlike Kiddard Hall, he was also a person that Zipfel was eager to bring to him at one time. It was because of his unique defensive magic, famous for his extreme defense. Eventually, Chukan became a member of the Dark Magic Society and now sat on the opposite side of Zipfel at the card table. 200. And another 200. Call. Jin's stake started to run out at a moderate pace. When the flash cannon explodes, Kinslow and Zipfel will inevitably suspect each other. But they will quickly identify me and Cyrus as the culprits. The confusion should last around 10 seconds. I had to deal with as many enemies as possible within that time. Chukan, who had been watching the losing side with sharp eyes for a while from the central card table, shook his head. I guess everything bothers me now that I'm getting older. I wondered if they were the thieves prepared by you. Haha. You were saying something strange, Sir Chukan. If we just wanted to take the goods, would we go to such lengths? We could just refuse to return it. They're just gamblers who have nothing to do with us. Don't be pretentious, Karl Zippel. Aren't you putting on a play on this island because you're cautious too? If you returned it officially, Runcandle might catch a whiff, and if you don't, we might have leaked information to Runcandle and Vermont. Your words are sharp, Sir Chukan. I'm just saying this because you break the alliance clause and act so shamelessly without even apologizing. I have no idea what your father is up to. If you get a chance, ask yourself, I don't know if you have the guts to go find my father. That's a cute sound. It's time. Bring out the item. We need to confirm it. Jean and Cyrus couldn't hear the voices of the two people. The crowd was too noisy and the distance was far. However, there were no problems with the execution of the operation. It's 10 o'clock. The stakes are all gone. Jean lowered his head like a person who had lost his country, and Cyrus stood up from her seat with a face that seemed to have expected it. Unfortunately, it's over, young master. I've lost interest too. Let's just forget about drinking together. Tick-tock, as Cyrus left the table, the onlookers naturally followed her. The card table emptied in an instant. Jean glanced up and saw a bag of gold coins in the middle of the central card table. A bag of gold coins mixed with a compass. Jean could also see Chukan opening the bag and pulling out a golden compass that was a little bigger than a gold coin. Now! Jean stepped on the table at once and threw himself into the center card table. In his grasp, a white flash cannon was swollen, ready to explode at any moment.